How much do you spend heating your coop each winter? Heat lamps, wiring, extension cords, ceramic heaters, infrared panels. The list grows before the first frost arrives. And then the electricity bill arrives. And then, despite all of it, you still find a bird with a frostbitten comb on a hard February morning. On Amish farms across Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Indiana, that entire sequence does not exist. The same coops, the same winters, zero heating costs since the early 1800s. No bird losses to cold, no frostbite, no heat lamp fires, no extension cord failures at 2 in the morning. The system they use does not run on electricity, it runs on physics. Thermal mass, controlled airflow, moisture management, and the deliberate recycling of heat that the birds themselves generate. All of it understood and applied 2 centuries before the first poultry heat lamp was manufactured. All of it still working today on every Amish farm that has never paid a winter electricity bill for its chickens. The first thing the modern poultry industry taught backyard chicken keepers to fear is cold air. Keep the coop warm, the advice goes. Add a lamp, add a heater, add a thermostat. The Amish built their understanding of winter coops around an entirely different biological reality. Chickens are not cold-sensitive animals in the way that fear-based advice implies. A healthy, well-fed chicken in a dry environment with no drafts can tolerate temperatures well below freezing without any external heat source. The physiological threat to a winter flock is not cold. It is moisture. A wet bird in cold air dies. A dry bird in cold air survives. Every frostbitten comb, every bird lost to a hard winter in a heated coop, traces back not to insufficient warmth, but to insufficient moisture management. The heat lamp raises the interior temperature. It also raises the interior humidity because warm air holds more moisture from the bird's respiration and droppings. The condensation that forms when that warm, humid air contacts the cold surfaces of the coop creates the exact wet-cold combination that kills birds. The Amish coop was not designed to be warm. It was designed to be dry. The distinction is the entire system. Here is the structural mechanism the Amish coop used to manage moisture, and it is so simple that most contemporary poultry keepers dismiss it when they first hear it. Fresh cold air enters through a low opening on the south-facing wall, a gap beneath the door, a low vent slot, a controllable shutter positioned near the floor. That cold air is denser than the warm air already inside the coop. It moves along the floor, absorbing moisture from droppings and wet straw as it travels. As it warms slightly from the bird's body heat and the thermal mass of the walls, it rises. The rising, warm, humid air exits through a small, high vent on the north wall or near the peak of the roofline, positioned directly opposite the entry point to create a passive crossflow. No fan, no electricity, no moving parts, just the physics of warm air rising and cold air displacing it, continuously cycling moisture out of the building at the exact rate it is being produced by the birds. The birds, meanwhile, roost high, above the cold floor air, below the humid ceiling air, on heavy timber perches positioned in the thermal sweet spot of the coop's natural convection current. The entire system was understood by Amish builders not as thermodynamics, which they had no language for, but as observation. Coops built this way had dry birds in February. Coops built without this airflow had wet birds in February. Dry birds lived. Wet birds did not. The thermal mass of the coop walls was the second element of the Amish winter system, and it is the element most completely absent from contemporary coop design advice. Modern backyard coops are built light. Thin plywood walls, minimal framing, corrugated metal roofing, materials chosen for low cost and easy construction. They heat quickly when a lamp is on and cool to ambient temperature within minutes when the lamp goes off. The thermal swing is enormous. An Amish coop was built heavy. Thick timber walls, dense clay and straw infill between framing members, a deep layer of packed earth beneath the floor straw. These materials absorb heat slowly throughout the day, from the bird's collective body warmth and from any solar gain through the south-facing window. They release that absorbed heat slowly through the night, smoothing the temperature curve so that the interior never swings from warm to dangerously cold in the hours before dawn when outdoor temperatures reach their minimum. The birds sleeping on the heavy timber roost were sleeping on a thermal battery that had been charging all day and was discharging slowly through the night. No electricity required, no thermostat required, just mass, correctly positioned, doing what mass has always done, storing energy and releasing it slowly across time. The modern cop industry sells insulation as the substitute for thermal mass. Insulation resists heat transfer. Thermal mass stores it. They are not the same thing, and the difference between them is the difference between a coop that requires a heat lamp and one that does not. The south-facing window was the third element, and like everything else in the Amish coop system, it was positioned by biological logic rather than aesthetic preference. A single window on the south wall, placed high enough to clear the roost line but low enough to allow winter solar angles to reach the floor of the coop, delivered two things simultaneously. First, direct winter sunlight onto the packed earth floor and the lower clay straw wall surfaces. Solar gain absorbed by the thermal mass during the short daylight hours of January and February, adding to the stored heat that would be released through the night. Second, natural light on a schedule calibrated to the bird's laying biology. Hens require a minimum of 14 hours of light to maintain laying through winter. Modern commercial operations provide this with electrical lighting. The Amish south window, oriented to capture the low winter solar arc, provided as much natural light as the season allowed and positioned the flock to receive it directly during the hours when the sun was highest. It did not replace electrical lighting entirely in the deepest winter months, but it reduced the dependency significantly. And the solar gain it delivered to the thermal mass of the floor and walls was something no electrical system could replicate. Free energy, entering through glass stored in earth and clay, released slowly through the night. The south window was not a feature, it was infrastructure. The deep litter system was the final element of the Amish winter coop, and it is the one that most directly replaced the heat lamp as a biological heat source. Modern poultry advice treats coop litter as a hygiene problem, something to be cleaned out regularly to prevent disease and odor. The Amish treated co-op litter as a biological heating system. Beginning in early autumn, before the first hard frost, they began adding carbon material to the coop floor. Straw, dried leaves, wood shavings, building the litter layer upward rather than removing it. As the winter progressed, the birds' droppings mixed into the carbon layer. Microbial decomposition began, and decomposition generates heat. A properly managed deep litter bed, 8 to 12 inches of carbon material actively decomposing through the winter months, generates measurable warmth from the floor upward. Not dramatic warmth, not the concentrated heat of a lamp, but a consistent low-level biological warmth that raises the floor-level temperature several degrees above ambient and keeps the litter itself dry through the microbial activity that consumes moisture as part of the decomposition process. The same process that would create a disease problem in thin, wet, stagnant litter creates a heating and drying system in deep, actively managed high-carbon litter. The distinction between the two outcomes is not the birds or the pathogens. It is the carbon-to-nitrogen ratio in the litter and the depth at which decomposition can occur without becoming anaerobic. The Amish manage this by addition, not removal. Every time the litter appeared to be compacting or dampening, they added more carbon material on top. The litter managed itself. The heat came for free. The Amish winter coop system is not a collection of folk wisdom. It is applied physics, applied biology, and applied architecture. Three disciplines operating simultaneously in a building that was designed to function without any external energy source. Passive convection removes moisture. Thermal mass stores and releases warmth. Solar orientation adds free energy through glass. Deep litter generates biological heat from the floor. The birds on the heavy timber roost sit at the intersection of all four systems, dry and warm in conditions that kill poorly designed flocks despite expensive electrical intervention. None of these principles were invented by the Amish. Thermal mass was understood by Roman builders. Passive ventilation was documented in medieval agricultural texts. Solar orientation was calculated by anyone who built a south-facing structure before the electrical grid made orientation irrelevant. The Amish preserved these principles not through ideology but through necessity. They could not afford the electricity bill, so they built buildings that did not need one. And in doing so, they preserved a set of engineering principles that every backyard chicken keeper who has ever paid a February electricity bill or found a frostbitten bird under a heat lamp would benefit from understanding. The question is not whether these principles work. 2 centuries of Amish winter flocks answer that question. The question is whether the person building their next coop is willing to think like an architect before reaching for a power outlet. Leave a comment below. Have you ever lost a bird to cold despite running a heat lamp? Tell me what your setup looked like. If this breakdown changed how you think about coop design and winter management, subscribe. There is more engineering like this where it came from.